I sat across from my husband at our anniversary dinner, watching him laugh at his phone while I wore the dress he once called breathtaking. I didn't know then that the woman texting him was sitting 3 tables away, watching us, or that by midnight I'd discover a truth that would burn our entire marriage to ashes. If you've ever felt invisible to someone who promised to see you forever, stay with me. This story gets darker before the light comes. And if you believe karma is real, hit that like button because justice is coming. My name is Nalani. I'm 32 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had everything figured out. A career I'd built from the ground up, a beautiful home, and a husband I'd loved since I was 27. But that night, sitting in the same restaurant where Graham first told me he loved me, I realized I'd been living in a carefully constructed lie. I spent 2 hours getting ready. I remember standing in front of the mirror, smoothing down the red dress I'd bought specifically for tonight. 5 years, half a decade of marriage. I wanted to look the way I did on our wedding day when he couldn't take his eyes off me. I sprayed his favorite perfume on my wrists and neck. I practiced my smile because lately smiling at him felt like work. When I walked into that restaurant, I had hope. Stupid, stubborn hope that maybe tonight would be different. Maybe tonight he'd remember why he married me. But the moment I sat down, he barely looked up. His eyes were glued to that phone, his fingers moving across the screen with more tenderness than he'd shown me in months. I tried to start a conversation. "Do you remember our first date here?" He gave me nothing, just a distracted, "yeah," followed by silence. I watched him smile at whatever was on that screen, a real smile, the kind he used to give me, and something inside my chest cracked open. I excused myself to the bathroom because I refused to cry in front of him. I refused to give him the satisfaction of knowing he was breaking me. But when I walked back to our table, I saw his phone light up with a message, and I saw the words that would change everything. "I can see you from here. You look miserable with her. Meet me at our spot after?" My hands started shaking, my vision blurred, and in that moment, standing in the middle of an elegant restaurant where couples celebrated love, I realized my marriage was already over. I sat back down, and my voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Who's Jay?" His entire body went rigid, the color drained from his face, and then just as quickly, his expression hardened into something defensive, almost angry. "It's work, Nalani. God, you're so paranoid." But I saw the panic in his eyes. I knew. "Show me your phone, then." He pulled it away like I'd asked him to cut off his hand. "I'm not doing this with you, not here." But I was done being quiet, done swallowing my suspicions to keep the peace. "On our anniversary? You're texting someone on our anniversary?" My voice was getting louder. People at nearby tables were starting to look. Graham's jaw clenched. "Lower your voice. You're embarrassing yourself." That's when something in me snapped. I stood up, and I felt 5 years of silence, of making myself smaller, of ignoring red flags come pouring out. 5 years. 5 years I've given you, and you can't even look at me for one dinner? He threw cash on the table and grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in too tight. He practically dragged me outside while I tried to pull away. The night air hit my face, cold and sharp. The moment we cleared the door, I ripped my arm from his grip. "Don't you dare touch me like that." "Who is she?" He ran his hand through his hair, and I saw it. The moment he decided to stop pretending. "You want the truth? Fine. Her name is Juliet. We work together." The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. "How long?" He didn't answer. "How long, Graham?" His voice was flat, emotionless. 8 months. 8 months. While I was planning anniversary dinners and trying to save our marriage, he was building a whole other life. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. The slap echoed in the empty parking lot, sharp and final. My palms stung, his cheek flushed red, but he didn't even flinch. He just looked at me with something worse than anger. disgust. You want to know why? Because you're exhausting, Nalani, always needing validation, always making everything about race. My mother was right about you. This marriage was a mistake from the start. Then he got in his car and left me there, standing in a parking lot in my red dress and heels, watching his taillights disappear. I collapsed right there on the cold pavement, my body shaking with sobs I couldn't control. This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation. I don't remember calling Octavia. I just remember her arms around me, lifting me off that pavement, putting me in her car. She drove me home in silence because what do you say to someone whose world just shattered? When we walked into the house, everything looked the same. Our wedding photos on the wall, his coffee mug in the sink. But it was all a lie, every single piece of it. That's when I saw his laptop on the kitchen counter, still open. He'd left in such a hurry he forgot it. Octavia looked at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. I wiped my face, and something shifted inside me. The crying stopped. The devastation hardened into something cold and focused. I sat down and opened his email. What I found made the affair look like mercy. There were months of emails between Graham and Juliet. They weren't just sleeping together, they were planning a life. Hotel receipts from business trips that never involved business, weekend getaways while he told me he was at conferences. But it was her words that made my blood run cold. "When are you finally leaving her?" And his response, dated 2 weeks ago, "Soon, just waiting for her promotion bonus to clear. She makes more than me this year." I stared at those words until they burned into my brain. My promotion bonus, 6 figures. It had deposited into our joint account 8 days ago. The account he had access to. The account where I'd stupidly given him power of attorney last year when I had surgery and needed someone to handle bills. He wasn't just cheating, he was robbing me. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't sadness. I scrolled further and found texts between Graham and Patricia. "You married beneath you, darling. That woman will never fit into our family. Juliet is much more suitable." There were dozens of messages. Patricia had already met Juliet, already welcomed her. They'd been planning my replacement like I was a piece of furniture they were upgrading. I stood up so fast, the chair fell backward. I grabbed a glass from the counter and threw it against the wall. It shattered and I screamed. I screamed until my throat was raw. Because the man I loved, the family I tried so hard to belong to, they'd all been waiting for me to leave. Octavia grabbed my shoulders. "No, we're not breaking down. We're getting even." I looked at her through my tears. "How?" She smiled, and it wasn't kind. "He doesn't know you found out about the money yet, does he?" I called my cousin Wesley at midnight. He's a lawyer, and he answered on the second ring, because family always does. By 6 in the morning, I was sitting in his office with every piece of evidence printed out and organized. Wesley looked at me over his reading glasses. "Nalani, this is fraud, financial abuse. That power of attorney doesn't give him the right to steal from you." He leaned forward. "But you need to move faster than him. Right now, he thinks you're still crying. Use that." I didn't waste another second. By noon, I'd emptied our joint account and moved every penny into a new account in my name only. $73,000, including my bonus. Then I called the credit card company. Turns out, I was the primary holder on both cards. Graham was just an authorized user. I canceled his cards while I sat in that office, imagining his face when they declined. The house? My parents had gifted it to me as a wedding present. The deed was in my name. I called a locksmith and had every lock changed by 3 in the afternoon. Octavia wasn't idle either. She's a photographer, which means she knows how to find people online. She tracked down Juliet's social media, and what she found was almost funny. Juliet had been posting couple photos, carefully cropping out faces but leaving in enough details. Graham's watch, his car, his jacket. And buried in the comments, we found something golden. Juliet was engaged. Not to Graham, to some guy named Brett who had no idea she was living a double life. By the time Graham came home 2 days later, fresh from whatever hotel bed he'd been warming with Juliet, his entire world had shifted. I watched him through the Ring camera as he approached the front door. He tried his key. It didn't work. Confusion crossed his face. He tried again. Then he saw his suitcases on the porch, neatly packed. He started pounding on the door, yelling my name. I pressed the speaker button. "Check your bank account, Graham." I watched him pull out his phone. I watched his face go from confusion to shock to pure rage. "What did you do?" My voice was steady, cold. Exactly what you were planning to do to me, except I was faster. He lost it, screaming, threatening, demanding I open the door. I ended the call and blocked his number. Behind me, Octavia was already sending screenshots to Graham's law firm and to Brett's Instagram account. Karma wasn't coming. We were hand-delivering it. The next morning, Graham's law firm launched an investigation. Apparently, they have strict policies about workplace relationships, especially when they involve junior associates and senior lawyers abusing power dynamics. Graham was suspended pending review. By that afternoon, Juliet was fired. She was more expendable, easier to cut loose. And Brett? He didn't just break off their engagement. He posted every screenshot, every receipt, every lie on social media. Juliet's perfect life imploded in real time, and suddenly, Graham wasn't looking so appealing to her anymore. They turned on each other like animals, each one blaming the other for their destroyed lives. Then, Patricia called. Her voice was ice. "You need to come here and fix this, now." Something in me laughed. I actually laughed. I drove to her mansion, that place where I'd never felt welcome, where every family dinner felt like a test I was designed to fail. When she opened the door, her face was twisted with fury. "How dare you destroy my son's life over some silly misunderstanding?" I held up my hand, and she actually stopped talking. "No, you don't get to speak. You get to listen." I walked into her pristine living room and played the recording Wesley told me to make. Graham's voice admitting he was waiting for my bonus to clear, admitting he planned to leave me broke. Then I pulled out my phone and showed her the texts. Her texts. Every cruel word she'd written about me. Every racist comment she thought was private. "Your son isn't a good man who made a mistake. He's a thief and a liar, and you raised him to be both." Patricia's face went pale. "We just wanted better for him." "Better?" My voice rose, and I didn't care anymore. "I have 2 degrees. I built my career from nothing. I loved your son when he had law school debt up to his eyeballs, when nobody else wanted him. I made myself smaller, quieter, easier for you people to digest. And this is better?" She had no answer. For the first time in 5 years, Patricia had nothing to say. 3 days later, Graham showed up at my office. Security almost tackled him in the lobby. He was desperate, broken. He'd lost everything: his career, his money, his mistress, his dignity. "Nalani, please, I made a mistake. I love you." I looked at the man I'd once promised forever to, and I felt absolutely nothing. "No, Graham, you never loved me. You loved what I could give you. My money, my forgiveness, my ability to make you look like a good man." He reached for my hand and I stepped back. "Don't touch me. Sign the divorce papers. We're done." Security escorted him out while he begged, and I walked back to my office with my head high. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm standing in my new apartment, and everything here is mine. The furniture, the art on the walls, the peace that fills every corner. I got the promotion I deserved at work. Turns out when you're not spending all your energy trying to save a dying marriage, you can actually focus on yourself. Octavia comes over most evenings. We drink wine on my balcony and laugh about things that used to make me cry. "Did you hear?" she asks, pouring us both another glass. I raise an eyebrow. Graham's law license got suspended for ethics violations. He moved back in with Patricia. I take a sip and smile. "And Juliet?" Octavia grins. "Married Brett. He took her back somehow. They deserve each other. Last week, I went to Octavia's gallery opening. I was wearing a black dress, my natural hair out, feeling more myself than I had in years. I was talking to a collector when I saw him across the room. Graham, wearing a server's uniform, carrying a tray of champagne glasses. Our eyes met for just a second. He looked away first, shame written all over his face. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just complete and total indifference. That's when I knew I'd won. Not because he lost everything, but because his absence no longer left a wound. Tonight, I'm home alone and it feels like freedom. I walked to my dresser and opened the small jewelry box where I've kept my wedding ring. I wore it through the entire divorce because some part of me wasn't ready to let go. But now, I slide it off my finger and drop it inside. The sound it makes when it hits the bottom is final. I close the box and put it away. They say living well is the best revenge, but I learned something deeper. The best revenge isn't making them hurt. It's becoming so whole that their absence no longer leaves a wound. My husband ignored me at dinner because he never truly saw me. But now I see myself. And that's everything. To anyone who's ever been made to feel invisible, you're not the problem. You never were. Sometimes people betray us not because we lack value, but because they lack the capacity to recognize it. Walk away, take your power back, and watch how the universe has a way of balancing the scales. If this story reminded you that you're worth more than someone's disrespect, drop a like. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe because I'm bringing you more stories of karma, justice, and people who chose themselves. See you in the next one.